where people sit down, those that have the money buy up the elections and buy their representatives, and they go, come to think of it, we have 5,000 lobbyists on the American Congress. So where is the voice of the common man? Where is the voice of the guy that belongs to the people whom democracy is supposed to represent? So this, even in Europe, is happening today. Look at what is happening in Brussels at the European Union level. The lobbyists are everywhere with their bags and they're influencing our politicians. The guys we elected are being influenced by the companies to pass laws that has nothing to do with us. Look at the pharmaceutical laws they are passing today to give the big companies a break to poison us and poison our future, and we call that a democracy. So what I believe is that we really need to criticize this dogma, this democracy that has become a religion, under which we allow a lot of inconsistencies that are, a lot of facts that are inconsistent with democracy to just happen under our watch. So democracy must go back to its roots and become a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Whoever says that democracy is a luxury has never lived in a state where the police could just come in and arrest you without anybody opening an eyelid, where you could be disappeared into an unknown dark tunnel, like the CIA was doing to a lot of Arab guys in the name of fighting terror. And Europe was helping actively. Democracy is important because it makes us ask our governments to be accountable to us. Because if you're not accountable, we're going to kick you out in the next election cycle. It's pretty important. It's fundamental power that we should have and we should exercise. We should look at countries like Spain under Franco to see what lack of democracy could bring. Or Uganda under Idi Amin. Or Nigeria under Sani Abacha. Or Congo under Mobutu Sese Seko. History is replete with such regimes that trampled human rights underfoot. Democracy is pretty important, but what I am arguing against is that we really need, all of us, we really need to fight for returning democracy to its roots. I love what the Greeks did. They didn't like the austerity. It was killing people. It was tragic. And austerity has not been proven to have elevated any country out of poverty, out of underdevelopment. And the people went to the polls and said, hell no, we don't want this 20% that have been ruling us all this while. We want a new direction. And their voices counted. I wish Europe would respect those voices. That's what democracy is all about. The other point I want to make is we should try to unbundle as much as possible the thinking that we have in our heads today in Europe and most of the Western world, that democracy is the same thing as capitalism. That's a fraudulent falsehood. It is not. Capitalism is an economic system. Democracy is a political system, a system of government. That capitalism seems to have won the Cold War, piggybacking on the Western kind of ideology does not mean that it's the best thing that has ever happened to humanity. No, capitalism has serious flaws, which should be readdressed, which Europe did a great work in readdressing. We have welfare economies, like England. We have the Germans introduced what they call the Sozialmarktwirtschaft, social market economy, giving capitalism a human face under a democratic setting. So the people should be allowed to decide who governs them. And this is what brings me to the African setup. How many minutes do I have? 2? So what that brings me to the African setup. Like I made mention of during my presentation this morning, most of what we have in Africa is not democratic. Democracy is a luxury that we don't need less of, we need more of it. We are not having enough of it in the place I come from. Most of our governments are imposed from without, from outside. The destiny of millions of Africans are decided in Washington, in Brussels, in Paris, and all these major power centers. If you don't believe me, I will just get out fast from my human rights work and then you'll see what we're talking about. But these countries are supposed to have government. But because these governments don't own the power of the purse, they don't generate their own income. They depend on foreign aid to sustain them. And then, once the donor agencies say, you do this, they come and implement those ideologies on the people, and the people don't have a voice. And that leads to what I call MAD. MAD used to be, during the Cold War, we have mutual assured destruction, the deterrence between Soviet Union and the United States. But in the African context, I call it mutual assured deceit. The people don't pay taxes and the government doesn't ask for it. Why? Because the people know that if they pay taxes, the government steals the money and then dumps it to the elite. and dumps it in foreign bank accounts. And the government doesn't ask because most of these countries have resources. So they depend on rent to finance the economy. So they don't worry the people and the people don't worry the government. So nobody accounts to the other. And this is a system that we don't need. Okay, because lack of this democracy that makes the people makes the government accountable to the people has led into disastrous consequences for countries in sub-Saharan Africa. We could see Nigeria, where we have what I call a pretense to a democracy. Election